Hello and welcome to the Auto Shaman podcast, the only podcast dedicated to empowering you to act with confidence and achieve automotive enlightenment. Each week, I, the Auto Shaman, answer your car-related questions and concerns, giving you the power to make the right decisions. Email the Auto Shaman at theautoshamanpodcast@gmail.com. That's SHAMAN at gmail.com. Follow us on all major platforms, and if you like what you hear, why not tell a friend? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Auto Shaman podcast, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you automotive enlightenment. Coming to you live from my Shaman shack buried deep in the mountains of Montana, where it's currently hotter than the catalytic converters at the junkyard. Wanted to thank everyone who's been watching my videos and shorts. We got a few long-form videos over 100 views and several shorts nearing 2,000 views. It's been a successful first few weeks, and with your likes and subscriptions, we're going to grow this thing into some new heights and something pretty amazing. Show me a little love, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and tell a friend. Alrighty, I got a message this week for the young bucks, the future auto shamans of America. So you got a car, and you want to turn it into your project car, and you're wondering how to build your project car. You want to make it go faster. Understandable. You're young, and that's exciting. Let's talk about the right way to do it, because the cold air intake and loud exhaust you put on there isn't doing anything for you. So how do we build a project car that is reliable and goes faster and checks all the boxes we're looking for and still make sure we get to work and school? Where I would start is tires. And here's where I want you to spend the most money. You need tires. You're not going anywhere on a bald set of tires. And if you're rolling around on the original tires you bought your, I'm guessing, late model car with, they're cracked and dry rotted, and they don't have what you need to go fast safely. So I want you to spend as much money as you possibly can on a good set of tires. And if you've got the money, the best thing you can do is get some new wheels. And I'm not talking about bigger wheels. I don't want you rolling on 20s. I want you to get the lightest wheel you can fit in the original hub. When you go for a bigger wheel, you're reducing the final drive gear of your vehicle and you're slowing down its off-the-line acceleration. Realistically, if you can, you should maybe be even looking at a smaller wheel. A smaller wheel spins faster with the same amount of power, and you're going to be going down the line quicker. It's important that you're going for light. If you're sitting on some steel wheels, you need to be looking at some aluminum wheels. Unsprung weight is the weight that your vehicle can't control with its suspension, and it's a liability to you when you hit a pothole or you hit a bump in the road and the thing starts jouncing around. You need to keep that as light as possible. So what's the next thing we should look at? I think your next best move, if you want to make your car go faster, stop better, and handle better, is you got to start reducing the weight in the thing. This is supposed to be a hot rod for you. And I don't know how many race cars you've actually looked at, but none of them have a back seat. And they don't have door cards. And they probably don't have speakers or radios. And they don't have trunk liners. And they don't have the plastic trim pieces that go around the quarter panel or inside the trunk. All that stuff adds up quickly. And while big horsepower numbers are fun, the most important thing is horsepower to ton. How much horsepower is in the car versus how much it weighs. And it costs you nothing to take things out of the car. You're not buying anything. And as long as you're not disconnecting any electrical components, save the stereo system, it's not going to keep you from getting to work on a regular basis. I would not recommend taking your jack and spare tire out of the car. This is not a purpose-built race car. And in all likelihood, at some point, you're going to encounter a flat and you're going to need to be able to get somewhere. So leave those in. But if you can pull every unnecessary component out of that thing and don't roll around with a bunch of crap in your trunk, you're going to feel your car moving off the line a lot quicker and going through corners quicker. If you really want to get crazy with the cheese whiz, pull the air conditioning system out of the car. That's one less thing driven by the belt, and you're looking at about 70 pounds of weight reduction. That's about half of a person you're pulling out of the car. The AC compressor weighs a ton. You're pulling out the the condenser, which is getting in the way of the efficiency of the radiator, all the lines, and the charge itself has weight. So while it's going to cost you sweat, literally, you're going to save a good amount in weight on the vehicle. Auto Shaman, I want more horsepower. Hold your horses there, sunshine. You're not ready for it. Next thing you got to do is stiffen the chassis. Put a bigger anti-sway bar in there. Make sure your sway links are intact and not cracked out. Spend a little money on a strut tower brace, front and rear. You're going to need to be able to get the power to the ground, and you're going to need to be able to get around a corner efficiently. And even when you're done with that, I want you moving on to the brakes. If you build horsepower into a car and don't account for the ability to stop it, you're writing your ticket to the hospital. Get a bigger set of discs on the front. Get a better, more efficient set of calipers. If you've got one piston, go to two. Get drilled and slotted brake rotors. If you've got drums in the back, somewhere out there for sure is a kit that's going to let you convert those to rear discs. And when you do that, you're going to need a new master cylinder as well. Shaman, can I bolt a turbo onto the engine now? No, you're still not ready. Let's move on to the engine, but let's start by lightening the crankshaft pulley and the flywheel. You're going to love the way your engine feels with less inertial mass spinning. It's going to rev up quicker, you're going to be quicker between your gear shifts, and it's going to get into the power band quicker when it has less to lug around. You're thinking about pulling drag off of this motor before you're thinking about adding power to it. Kind of the same idea of removing the AC system. If you've got less driving on the motor, there's more power available to your rear wheels. So if you can, look to lighten what's spinning around in a way that is accessible. You're probably going to need to do a clutch soon anyway, so while you're in there, spend a few extra $100 and get a lightened flywheel. You'll thank me. Okay, let's make some more power. You ready? Get a tune-up on this thing. Put better plugs in it. Make sure the timing is perfectly dialed in. Make sure your engine oil is changed. Learn how and when your engine operates at its best and don't let anything get in the way. It's still going to start and drive every day and be reliable for you, and you're going to get that horsepower back that was robbed by the deferred maintenance of the last owner. Okay, let's start buying power. I want you to try and find a bigger carburetor or bigger factory fuel injectors for your vehicle. Get online and do some research. I nearly guarantee someone has figured out that if you pull the fuel injectors from this car, they bolt right into your car. Chances are good they're going to be directly from a factory and very reliable for you. And even better, in all likelihood, they're going to plug into the factory connectors, because the last thing you want to do is splice into the factory engine harness. Again, we want power that gets us to work, not good ideas that leave us walking to the parts store. Okay, we've got more fuel. Let's get more air into this thing. Same with the fuel injector. I bet if you got on the forum somewhere, you'll find someone who's already figured out a bigger throttle body that fits in your vehicle. And I bet you could find a bolt-on intake manifold that works a lot better. That cold air intake you've been eyeing is doing you no good if it's still getting choked through that same butterfly valve in the intake manifold. Do your research and find a way to get it into the engine at the mouth, and then worry about getting a nice long snorkel on the front of the thing. If that cold air intake is sitting in the engine bay, it's not a cold air intake. Take the time to run that thing down to the bottom of the engine bay and get some real cold air coming into it. And if you're going to do that, you better be damn wary of any puddles you're going to run into, because the last thing you want to do is use that thing like a straw and suck water into your engine. Come on, Shaman, let's turbo this thing. Why are you so obsessed with a turbo? Get over it. You're asking to cut into your oil system, and if your vehicle wasn't already built with a turbo, you're putting way too much stress on the system. Don't do it. If you want more power, find a bigger engine to put in the thing. If you've got the 1.6, move to the 1.8, and the 1.8 to the 2-liter. Get the factory ECU out of the thing. There's no replacement for displacement, and that's the best way to build power into a car. Let's talk about what not to do to this thing. I mentioned it earlier, but a loud exhaust is a fool's errand for anyone looking to go fast in town. You don't need the attention of the police to be drawn to you by their ear as well as their eye. So with that in mind, avoid flashy graphics, avoid big spoilers, avoid those blacked out tail lamps. All that stuff that you think makes it look cooler puts a target on your back for the police when you're driving through town. Cars are fun. Have fun. Be safe. Know your limits. Don't do anything illegal. Alrighty, I mentioned earlier in the episode that I am in fact based out of Montana, but I did recently go on a vacation to what is my hometown, the Puget Sound area of Seattle. And I wanted to talk about something that did make me laugh a little bit, although those of you living in the area will likely be very frustrated by what's going to amount to a pointing and laughing session on my behalf. I was hopeful that so many years removed from the area, I would finally be able to take a train from Redmond to Bellevue and maybe into Seattle. And much to my chagrin, it turns out that this project is still underway and many years from completion. And it really made me kind of look into this project and ask a few questions about it because I get a mind for something and then dig a little deeper than I should. And it came to mind as I was sitting in traffic on 405. And again, those who live in the area will know well what a slog that can be. I was nearly an hour and a half from I-90 to my final destination just south of Everett. And the whole time I'm looking at the in-process light rail connector that's been going on through there. Having seen the overpass for the train, that's what sparked my interest in maybe finally riding this, but I kind of want to get into what I did discover about the Sound Transit light rail program. I had to ask myself, when did this project begin? And in doing my research, the first rumblings and the first voter-approved initiative passed in 1996. So this project is closing in on 30 years of production. And the projected end date of the light rail project is 2044. So the hope is that by just under 50 years, they will have completed, stand by, a whopping total of 116 miles of railroad and 86 train stations. Projected final budget for this program is $142 billion. That's billion with a B. And I did have to ask a few more questions because if the goal was to reduce the traffic in the area, what would it have cost? What would it cost to expand 405 and I-5 or even I-90 and 520, the main thoroughfares through the area? And while it's kind of hard to gauge because it's such a specialized area, I did choose to take a look at a recent project where lanes were widened on interstates through Los Angeles County, which is probably more restrictive for building than Washington is, if you can believe it. And it turns out they were able to add a lane to their interstates for about $100 million a mile, which does sound like a lot, but when you consider that currently Sound Transit is producing a mile of light rail at $1.2 billion per mile, and you extrapolate the math out, they could take I-5, add 2 lanes, and do it all the way to Los Angeles with the same amount of money. This same $142 billion could have been used to add 4 lanes to 405, I-5, I-90, and 520 throughout the entire Puget Sound region with money left over. Money that could be used for surface rapid ride buses, which actually are a pretty efficient way to get around town. So what's the big idea with this train program that is nowhere near completion, already over budget, and not alleviating the traffic concerns in the area? And the counter might be that it's a greener proposition to have people riding on trains than driving in cars. Well, I looked into this question as well. It turns out that a mile of light rail track costs about 10,000 metric tons of carbon to be pushed in the air if it goes through an undeveloped level graded area. That's no hills to climb, no tunnels to bore, no bridges to build. But when you start putting things into the hills and digging tunnels and making overpass, The concrete and diesel equipment that goes into building such things pushes the total to 50,000 metric tons per mile and makes the break even on carbon emissions somewhere in the 10 to 20 year range, assuming most of the people who are taking their commutes in their cars decide to take the train. It's too late for the Seattle area. I don't think you're going to get past the sunk cost fallacy at this point, and there's a good amount of infrastructure that's already in place, just sort of waiting on the environmental commissions to make their decision and allow things to proceed. But if you in your town hear talk of adding a light rail, think about this. It's not worth the time and money. If we're going to build trains in this country, it should be high-speed rail between our major thoroughfares. It's important to meet people where they are, and most people want to drive their cars. Our cities are built for cars. They're not built for pedestrian transportation or very often bicycle transportation. You're not going to engineer people into doing the things you want. You need to come up with solutions that are viable for the way people use your city. Here's a top tip for car buyers in the Seattle area. The most important thing you can get is a comfortable seat, a good stereo, and a decent air conditioning system. Okay, we got some questions in the inbox this week. Let's dig into those. Hello, Auto Shaman. I own land with a small parcel of land that I'm using as farm. I have been looking for efficient ways to get around and was wondering about your take on the small K trucks that have started to become imported from Japan. Any advice? Well, I agree. K trucks are super cool. They're small, they're efficient, they average 600 cubic centimeters of displacement, and maybe if you're lucky, make 80 horsepower. But they were not designed for use in an agricultural environment. Their primary design was to be used in small cities for independent business people to do things like transport flowers or make point to point deliveries on paved surface roads. If you're looking for something to use around a farm, I can't recommend more than getting like a side by side, a razor as they call them, or really the best way you could implement this is to get like a John Deere Gator. They're 4x4, they're diesel powered, they have beds that are very often dump beds, which is super handy when you're moving material, and they come with trailer hitches and provide a good amount of torque for when you're hauling things around your yard. While it may be attractive to pick up one of these K trucks, I would wager that you're going to have a hard time finding parts on this vehicle. They didn't make them here, and you're going to be searching forums and on eBay to get things coming to you when you find that it's broken down. Remember, anything gray market imported from Japan is probably going to be 25 to 30 years old. You're not buying a brand new rig that comes with a warranty or has any sort of guarantee of reliability. So just be wary of making this choice, and I'm nearly certain that you would be more happy with a Gator, a side-by-side, and probably come out cheaper on the front end and on the back end by the time things are done. Auto Shaman, I just added a quart of oil into my car. I put in 5W20, and when I close the cap, it says 0W20. Have I done something to hurt my engine? This is one of those questions that makes me ask questions, because the first thing I want to know is, why are you adding a quart of oil to your car? Are you leaking oil? Are you burning oil? Has it been that long since your last oil change that you're down a quart? Well, probably this isn't the worst thing you can do to your engine. I would say it's time to change your oil. You really don't want to mix fluids in anything. And while the engine oil may be the safest place to run this experiment, when you're talking about power steering fluid, coolant, automatic transmission fluid, there is a fluid specification for a reason, and you can cause major damage to these components if you're not careful about what you put in there. I've seen more than a few BMW owners try and save a little money by topping off their leaking power steering system with red ATF, and that destroys the system. What was once a simple leak is now a full power steering system replacement. I personally just ran into this. I recently replaced the engine in my car and made the unfortunate mistake of trusting the parts professional at Napa Auto Parts to guide me into the right coolant fluid specification. It has since been superseded, and unaware to him and I put the wrong coolant in my system, which resulted in my thermostat getting plugged up because the two didn't mix, and they created a sort of slurry that gummed the thermostat, and I darn near cooked my new engine. Be careful about where you put your fluids. So let's get back to the engine oil. I think you need to go get this thing taken care of. If you're finding you got to go put oil in the thing, you're leaking it or you're burning it, and if not, you are behind on your oil change interval. The dangers of having two different fluid viscosities in your engine oil sump is that one is sitting on the other. They float upon each other like oil and water. And if it happens at just the right spot where your crankshaft meets in the oil pan, you're going to wind up with what we call cavitation. You're going to wind up making air bubbles in your engine, and those are going to get sucked up, and you're going to wind up starving your engine for oil. Engines starved of oil leave us walking. I don't think you need to tow it, but definitely make an appointment to go get your vehicle checked out and have an oil change. I don't think it'll be necessary for them to flush the system. Just drain the oil pan and get a new filter on, and you should be good to go. Make sure they're doing a full inspection to make sure you're not leaking. And I would continue to keep an eye on your oil level. Unless you're driving a two-stroke engine or an RX-7 from the early 90s, you really shouldn't be losing more than a quart over 3,000 miles. I want you checking your engine oil every other fuel up until we can determine that you haven't just let it run for a few years, and we can keep an eye on your oil level. Shaman, some jerk hit my car and now the insurance company is saying it's totaled. No way I can replace this car for what they are offering me. Please help. Okay, this is pretty common, and it's something that if you're very lucky you won't ever run into, but by and large most of us at some point are going to have a car totaled. What does an insurance company owe you in the case of a total loss? They owe you for the market value of the vehicle. They don't owe you for the time it's going to take you to go to the dealership and haggle. They don't owe you for the hassle of having to pay off your loan, assuming you owe more than the vehicle is valued at. They don't owe you extra because it was your grandpa's car and you have a lot of sentimental value in it. They don't owe you anything extra because it was your first car and you're very much attached to it. They owe you for what it costs to buy a comparable vehicle in your market at a dealership. This does not mean you necessarily have to accept the offer that they are giving you. Do some research and take a look into the market value of your vehicle. Very often they pull random comparables and it doesn't necessarily reflect the market in your area. If you can come at them with comparables of a like-for-like vehicle, and that means if you have an SE, you're not sending them SLTs, different trim models, vehicles with different options packages. It needs to be a like-for-like vehicle. And come back at them with a counter offer and dig your heels into the ground. You'd be surprised what you can come out with. Depending on your state, they may owe you for what's called loss of use or time where you are out of the vehicle. And don't be afraid to ask for that as well. It does come at a burden and often quite a bit of expense for you to be out of your vehicle. It's very likely as well, depending on the state you're in, that the insurance company owes you for the registration of the vehicle that you lost out on and any taxes or fees that may go into purchasing the vehicle or registering the vehicle. So make sure those things are accounted for in your valuation. Just like getting your car repaired or buying a new car, it's important that you advocate for yourself and go in with all the information you possibly can. It costs you nothing to ask and to try and negotiate, and who knows, something may come out in your favor. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for me, please feel free to email me at theautoshamanpodcast@gmail.com. It's really my hope that one day we have enough subscribers that I can do this operation live and do sort of a call-in show where I'm fielding questions in real time. Click and clack, eat your heart out. So please drop a like on the video if you enjoyed my information, and please hit that subscribe button so that you can find me next time. I'm going to leave you here with the song I put out last week about loving the beater car that gets you to work. Y'all have a good one. See you next week. Come on. Come on, baby. There she goes.
Baby. I may not drive a Cadillac, but I got 4 wheels, a little rust, and a whole lot of love. I pull up slow, windows don't roll down, paint faded, tailpipe rattling, engine moan. But girl, you can still get in and call it home. Rolling in my hoopty, ain't no luxury, but it moves me. No leather seats, no fancy chrome, but when you're riding with me, you're never alone. Driver's side mirror, held on with tape, radio stuck 92.8. Got fuzzy dice, swinging from the dash. Ooh, she likes it. Baby, it ain't about the shine, it's about the ride and the love inside. Every dent, every scratch tells a tale. We got nothing to prove, we just set sail. Rolling in my hoopty, bucket seats and busted heat. But you choose me. We ain't rich, but we roll with pride. And my beat down faded with you by my side. It ain't the car, baby, it's the connection. Let's take this rust bucket all the way to heaven.
Rolling in my hoopty.